topic for today. Okay, last week's show was on incubators and incubating eggs, and we ended that show with, or we ended that course with your eggs are hatching out, pipping, unzipping, and hatching, and talked a little bit about letting the chicks uh, fully dry out before you take them out of the incubator and place them into your brooders. So that's where we're going to pick up today. We're going to start with the different types of brooders. But as far as leaving your chicks in the incubator, you can leave them in there from the time they hatch out, 24, even 48 hours if you have to. But usually within 12 to 24 hours, they're dried out, they're fluffy. If you look at the bird directly above my head, up against the edge of the incubator there, you can see that that one's still pretty wet. So he would probably stay in the incubator, for at least another 6 hours or so to uh, to let him dry off before he would go into the brooder. So let's go ahead and jump into the brooders. Oh, and then here we are, obviously, chicks come out of the incubator and go into the brooder. Okay, so first I want to start off with talking about the different types of brooders. Um, the unit on the top, the bottom unit is actually just a regular cage, but the unit on the top is one of Hatching Time's commercial brooders. Um, it has a heating element in it. It's got a light in it. You can also see that the floor is basically like a plastic wire floor, I'll call it. That's so that the manure will drop through. These work pretty well. I've started most of my chicks. I start out in a tub, a plastic tub, and I'll show you that one here in a minute. And then I will move them into this brooder if I need the space, because I've only have a limited amount of tubs, and I've got eggs hatching all the time. But like I said, it comes with a heating element inside it. It's got a regulator on it that you can set the temperature um, for whatever you want, and you can actually wean them off of the temperature over time. So that's pretty nice to be able to do that. But for the most part, these are the uh, brooders that I start my chicks out in. These are either 105 or 110 quart, maybe even 115 quart Sterilite plastic tubs. Um, you can pick them up at Walmart. They're pretty inexpensive. I think right now going price is like $12 to $14, somewhere in that range. And basically, all I do is I frame out a top for it using 1x2s for the framework, and then I cover it in half by half hardware cloth, and that's my lid. And obviously, you can see that the heating elements just sit right on top of um, the brooders themselves. But this is what I prefer, because the hatching time brooders, that unit right there, I want to say, no, I'm not even going to give you a price because I can't remember exactly, but they're they're pricey for a brooder, but they are nice. I mean, got the heating element and everything built right into it, so they are nice. But these here, I mean, for uh, $14 for the tub, maybe $3 to $5 worth of wire and wood, and then a couple $8 clamp lamps, and you're good to go. Basically, this is another shot, obviously, of inside the plastic Sterilite tub. Um, I'll also use one of the that red trough style feeder, and then the 1 quart waters that have the small basin on it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here. Um, this is a brooder, and this is one that I would recommend to you guys, especially if you hatch out a lot of chicks. This is basically just a uh, I want to say 3 foot by 6 foot wide brooder. It's got the capability. Well, I can't point at it to see it, but you can see where that piece of wood is on the back there. That's where you could actually install a divider to split it in two. And if I put chicks in it right away, I can put 100 chicks on each side. But normally I'll wait till the chicks get a little bit larger. And the nice thing about these brooders is having the wire floor. all the manure drops down, through the wire and into manure trays below. Just makes things a whole lot cleaner and easier to take care of. So that is what I recommend as far as if you've got the ability to build a brooder. And that's the nice thing about brooders, guys, is you can pretty much use anything for. You could use a cardboard box if you wanted. Um, I wouldn't recommend it because it might be flammable if it gets too hot. But um, you could build a brooder out of plywood, put a wire floor in it. You can use the tubs, which that's what I start out with. I start out using the plastic tubs for like 3 to 5 days, and then I move my chicks into either a larger brooder like this or one of the grow out pens that I've got with a heat source on it. So talking of heat sources, a lot of people that brood chicks, whether it's Coturnix chicks or chickens, they use these commercial heat lamps. They range anywhere from, I think you can get them from like 125 watt up to 250 watts. This one here is a 175. It works really good. It puts out a lot of heat. The only thing is you can't set it right on top of the top because it's too close to the floor and gets hot. But you can see here in this, I've got it suspended about, doesn't really look like it, but it's about 4 inches off the top of that wire. So it's suspended high enough to where it's not going to get too hot in there for the chicks. And let me go through the different types of heating elements or heating. You know what I'm talking about. And then we'll get into determining temperatures and whatnot and thing. This is another heating plate that you can get. This is kind of meant to act like a mother hen, basically. The chicks can, come and go out from underneath this thing, like they would if they were under a broody hen. They can, go under there, get heat. They're basically thermal regulating. They can warm up underneath the thing, come out, drink and eat and whatever. They work really nice. This is one that was sent to me by Premier One Supplies. I've never used them before, but I did test it out on one batch of chicks. It's in with another batch right now, and I really like it. I like that you can adjust the legs so you can raise it up as your chicks grow. But I'm using it right now inside the plastic Sterilite tubs, and like I say, they're only used for like up to a week. And here's another simple heating element you can use. Is basically your standard 8-inch clamp lamp. Pick them up for $8 to $10 at Walmart, and I used to use a 100-watt incandescent bulb, but you can't find them anymore. So I use a 100-watt equivalent. It's actually a 72-watt halogen, and that does a really nice job as far as a heat source. Okay, we're not going to go to that one yet. Another thing I want to talk about as far as heat sources go is to watch your chicks. A lot of people have asked me, what temperature do I want underneath the heat source? And on average, I'll tell people, if you can get a target heat of or target temperature of 100 degrees on the floor of the brooder directly underneath the heat source, you'll be fine with that. The chicks will actually thermal regulate. They'll come and go as they need heat, but you don't want it too hot, and obviously you don't want it too cold. The best thing that I found to do, and this is how I do it, or how I've been doing it for years, is I watch the chicks. If they are all bundled together underneath the heat lamp, I know it's too cold, and I either need to increase the heat source or I need to lower the heat source a little bit closer to the floor. And exactly opposite of that, if they are all away from the heat lamp and they're all pushed up against the walls, it's too hot. They're trying to get away from the heat. So use your chicks as kind of a sign of how you're doing, temperature wise on your heat source. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about feed. For the most part, every quail breeder I've ever talked to recommends anywhere between a 30 or a 25 to 30% protein, either game bird starter or turkey starter. Picture here is the Purina game bird starter. It's 30% protein. It's basically the only game bird starter that I can get. If you go to the feed stores around me and ask them for turkey starter, this is what they point you to. But yeah, like I say, most Tractor Supplies carry this. You can get away with using a chick starter, which is going to be a little bit less protein, probably in the 20 to 24 uh, protein percentage range. But if you can find a game bird starter, I would go that route because I think they've got it formulated more towards a game bird, not just protein wise, but other stuff. This is the back side of that bag, and if you look at the top on the left hand side there, it says where it says Coturnix quail. They show you um, how many weeks that they think that the bird should be on the game bird starter. And if you look at the top, age in weeks, that bar goes all the way across under Coturnix quail. Um, so they want you to keep your Coturnix quail on the game bird starter basically for life. I don't do that. I start mine out on the game bird starter, raise them on that till they're 8 weeks old, or to when they start laying eggs, and then I'll put them on a layer formula. Um, but yeah, game bird starter works well. If you can't find that, a chick starter, the highest protein chick starter that you can get will work. And the only difference that you might find in the different percentages of protein is the higher percentages is going to help your chick grow a little bit faster. If you got them on a lower percentage, they're still going to grow up. They're still most likely going to maintain, reach weight. It just may take them a little bit longer to. A lot of people ask me if I add supplements to their water. I do for my chicks from the time they hatch out till the time they're about 3 to 5 days old. I will add a very light vitamin and electrolyte solution to their water. I think this is made by Dervet, and I think it calls for it's either 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon per gallon. I believe it's a teaspoon per gallon, but I only do half of that. I don't mix it up, real, real strong for them. And to me, I look at it like it's kind of like an energy boost or a Gatorade for chicks. There are some people out there, and matter of fact, I've read it recently in the Coturnix Corner group. I can't remember the ingredients. They call it super water or some kind of water. If somebody knows what it is, post it real quick. But I think it's got like apple cider vinegar in it. I want to say garlic, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, but anyhow, that's just some of the people say to those are some of the other stuff that you can mix with their water if you want to mix it. You can get by just fine without putting anything in the water. You can just use standard tap water, which is what I do. I get all my water out of the tap. The one thing I want to say though is make sure that for at least for the first 2 days, preferably 3, give them warm water. Don't get them ice cold water out of your refrigerator, or if your tap is really cold, don't give that to the really young chicks. You're going to give them brain freeze. Is that called smart water, Kip? I'm not sure. I've never tried it before, but I know it's some type of water. But anyhow, yeah, start the chicks out on warm water, so you don't give them brain freeze and end up killing a few of your chicks. And I use a 1 quart water that's got the little basin on it, the small basin on it, and that way the chicks can't stand in it. You don't want your chicks to get wet, because if they get wet, they're going to get chilled, and if they get chilled, they could potentially die on you. So, as far as feed, like I said earlier, I do grind my feed for the first, 3 to 5 days. You can grind it longer than that if you want. Perry Schofield says that he grinds his feed for up to 6 to 8 weeks, I believe, and so it's not going to bother him, that way as far as grinding feed. Had a lot of people tell me you don't need to, but what I do is I'll put the feed on a paper towel inside the brooder, and for the first 2 or 3 days, and then I will switch over to a trough style feeder, which works really well for the chicks. If they will crawl. You can see in this picture here, they crawl into it. That's no big deal. But it works really well. It helps eliminate as much feed loss as you get by putting it on the paper towel. When you put it on the paper towel, they stand in it, they start kicking it like it's a normal scratching mechanism. That they can't do that with this here, so this works really well. Let's see, what else was I going to talk about on feed? I think. Oh, and then as far as substrates inside the brooder, these are the shavings that I put down in my brooders, that the plastic tub brooders that I use. It is basically pine shavings, a finely ground pine shavings. It's available. Obviously, you can see that at Tractor Supply, and it's pretty inexpensive. I think a bale of it is like $6, and it will go a long ways. It's the exact same pine shavings that I use in my manure trays. Couldn't think of the word manure. It's the same pine shavings that I put in the manure trays that helps absorb moisture and keep the smell down. So you know what? I want to bring up another picture because Dustin was asking me earlier about where did that picture go? There it is. Dustin over on the Facebook group page was asking me the difference between using shop towels or using the drawer liner material. This is one of my hatching time brooders, and the hatching time brooders comes with this little plastic insert that you can put in there if you want to keep the chicks off of we'll call it wire. It's plastic, but the grate. You can put these plastic inserts in there for the first few days until they, grow a little bit, and then you can take them out and put them on the wire. But I didn't like those. One, they're hard to get in and out, and two, they're plastic, and I'm always afraid, a chick's going to get splay leg if they're walking on something, that's a little bit slippery. So what I did was I tried these drawer liners. I cut them to fit and put them in there, and I can tell you I will never do that again. The drawer liner material, one, it's not going to allow the manure to drop down through it, and it does not absorb the moisture, so it smells really bad. It doesn't take long for it to build up, and when the manure doesn't dry out, the manure smells. So I don't do that anymore. But anyhow, once the chicks are grown up, start feathering out. These chicks here are about 2.5 weeks old, I believe. For the most part, they're fully feathered with the exception of their head. I will move them into a larger brooder like this, or a grow out pen. And yeah, David's saying the same thing about the impacted poop on their feet. Yeah, but I'll take them out of that plastic brooder. Usually once they start feathering out. That could be anywhere from 7 days up to 10 days, just depending on how many chicks I have in there. But I like to transition my chicks off of the pine shavings as fast as I can. So if they're 7 to 10 days old, I'll get them off of pine shavings and get them on a wire floor. A lot of times what I'll do, especially in this brooder, is I will lay down those blue shop towels just for the first couple days. That just, one, kind of helps them get used to the wire. They can feel the wire through the shop towels, and it just helps the transition a lot easier. And also it absorbs the moisture out of the manure, so it dries that out pretty quick. But they're only on the shop towels for maybe 2 days, and then I'll pull the shop towels out, and the birds are on wire, and for the most part they're on wire the rest of their life from that point forward, unless they go out into my aviary. Let's see, was there anything else that I want to talk about? Yeah, length of time in the brooder is for me 7 to 10 days. Now you guys may have to adjust these settings a little bit, or the amount of time, depending on where you're at. You know, temperature. Um, yeah, mainly your outside temperature. You know, if you need to keep them in a heated brooder longer, go for it. Me being in Florida, I really don't need to. You know, by the time they're 10 days old, I can pull them out of the brooder. These chicks here, they're not much more than 2 to 2.5 weeks. Um, they're in one of my regular grow out pens, and you can see I've got a heat lamp on top of them. They don't get the heat during the day because it's warm enough down here, but I will turn it on at night just to give them a source of heat should they want it. And then as far as numbers, that's the one thing I want to talk about, numbers in the brooders. Um, in those plastic sterilite tubs, I'll put about 60 chicks in there, 60 freshly hatched chicks, and they'll stay in there probably until they're around 5 days old. And whenever they start showing pin feathers, then I'll separate them. I'll reduce it down to about 30 chicks per sterilite tub, and then like I say, I'll grow them up to about 10 days before I move them out to the